Ladies and gents, boys and girls, this is Kane from DJVB, and this is our tutorial on the new Structure Designer tool. It's a custom structure builder that allows you to build incredibly complex 3D projection mapping designs for cubes. So cubic 3D projection mapping stages or props or set decor, whatever you want. You can design it in a, you can choose from our many pretty mind-bending spectacle-like cube animations I've pre-built, and they're all dynamic 3D control. So I mean, you can literally look at it from any angle you want using After Effects' built-in camera orbit tool. So this viewport that we're looking at is essentially the viewer's angle. So when this is being rendered out and you're happy with your design and you've dollied it up whichever way you want using all our presets, or designed it even from yourself, you can do that. Use all the animated properties in here, you can do. So when that's all done, it renders out from this perspective, and then it automatically pins it to a pixel map, and then you can use that render to project it back onto some cubes and literally blow minds. All very automated and easy because I've put in almost a year's worth of work to make sure it is. So let's get started, shall we? So a quick little bit of setup. Let's just go up here to File, Project Settings, Expressions. Please ensure it's on JavaScript because there's a lot of JavaScripting in here for the expressions, and if that isn't on, you'll surely know about it because nothing's going to work at all. Okay. Now, Project Panel. Everything's numbered. Insert logo or enter text. So these structures you can build and orbit round and then render and automatically have pinned. You can also add in your logos. You can put in text up to 5 lines on 2 different places. So 2 different locations, 2 different cubes. You can put on a line of text, and then you can scroll through it and have it say, I don't know, look at my projection mapping, for instance, and it can all be animated on a nice handy slider, and we're going to get to all that. Also the social icons, there's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, hashtags, Insta. So if you're going to use this for advertising of some sort, or decor, or maybe a tabletop thing for your YouTube channel, or whatever use you want to use this for, I've made it really easy for you to do that. What else can I explain? Sorry, I'm just checking there that I was recording because this is not the first time I've tried to record this tutorial. Okay, so the next comp, which is step 2, is the one we're looking at now. It's where you design everything. 3 is the render pixel map guide. You don't actually do anything in this comp. Let me just jump into it for you. It's simply me just reminding you, these are all the templates. I've laid them all up here, depending on how many cubes you're using in your design. This one you're looking at is for 10 cubes. The one below it, this one's for 9. This one's for 9, After Effects, thank you. And so on and so forth. You just need to remember, this is me reminding you to bring it with you. If you're going to projection map, you do need to have the template, because otherwise it's really difficult to know what goes where, and having the coordinates is handy. And also here you got the information about the resolution and pixels per face, depending on, this is all dynamic by the way, depending on how many cubes you've used in your design. So that's what that comp does, not a lot to do in there. Finally is the auto unwrap. We're going to get to that one later on. I don't want to confuse you guys too early on. Not that it is confusing, I just don't want to overwhelm you, shall I say. Okay, so here we are. This is what the template structure, the structure builder tool looks like when you first open it by default. Now, here we have the cubes, 10 of them lined up. And this is our canvas, this is the area where we're going to build stuff. We've got some nice little reflections and stuff going on here. I'm going to turn them off in just a sec because you do want to be able to work quite fast, and having all that on and the ray tracing and having it look pretty in here isn't really that necessary. I just wanted to sort of bamboozle you guys when you first see this tutorial. So, if you click on controls, surprise surprise, it's the controls for the effect. Now, what I've done is I've padlocked it here, and then if you click on the blue text that says controls and go a new effect controls viewer, it will give you 2 of these whole windows. It will give you another one, and I've just put mine here. This one's not locked, okay? So what it means is if you click stuff that has controls on it, you can see them here, but no matter where I click, my box mapping toolkit tools are all going to be here, and they're going to stay there because we're going to jump in and out of this, and I don't want it to go away if I change compositions down here. I always want that to remain there, so I've locked it there. That's my setup just before we get going, and so let's build some sweet stuff, shall we, people? So the first rollout in the tool, I won't explain everything in depth, by the way. I'm going to just we're going to build a design step by step, and as I go I'll explain what everything does and give you a bit of info, and then maybe at the end we're going to crack through and give you really specific stuff if there's any required. The first one is just boring video tutorial, links, license, troubleshooting. If you've got any issues, just click in there and check it's not already addressed. And usage licenses, obviously. I've spent a lot of time building this. I don't want people ripping me off and selling it on online marketplaces, stuff like that. If you're interested, have a read. The first meaningful tab is display. Now, this is where you control the look of the cubes as well as the look of the guide cubes that we're using as a reference point for designing our structure. I've obviously got it on UVW box here, but you could set it to plain, you could set it to metal frame. We'll just show you that. The metal frame, by the way, that is actually a replica. It's supposed to look like a physical box product that I will be selling very imminently on my website for a limited time, which you can use as a prop, almost like a projection canvas, a nice framework to actually use for real life structures. So I'll be selling those only briefly because I don't particularly want to be drop shipping and running down the post office all the time. I'm going to do it for a limited time. You can get those, and there's going to be various shapes and sizes, which will be, I imagine, 50 centimeters, 30 centimeters, and a whole meter, which is obviously going to be quite a bit more expensive because the shipping is just astronomical worldwide to ship 1 meter panels. Okay, let's get into this because this tutorial is already getting long, and it's going to be way longer, probably excess of an hour. So we're going to run through. So cube number labels, if I click this here, everything to do with display, by the way, of course, is in the display rollout. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you're building the structure, it's in here, and then so on and so forth. So if you're for instance, in the next rollout, if you're going to start moving the positions of these cubes and rotating and scaling them, it is sometimes easy to lose track of which one you're trying to edit. Okay, so if you click on the cube number labels, it just identifies which cubes is which is kind of helpful. Now, as I said before, I'm going to turn off the floor reflections. It's not that necessary while we're working, and it does slow us down. I've already got my resolution here down to 1/4 because we're working in rather high resolution. Okay, the next option we have that is more meaningful for this is, I'll just turn off cube number labels, is angle compensation. Now if I click that, it will show you the difference of the pan and tilt for each cube based on its distance away from the camera. Now it's starting to sound a little bit complicated. I'm not going to bore you with that just now. Basically it just gives you a angle differential. So if your cube is like really far left or right, it's telling you how much difference there is compared to the other cubes. If you wanted to render it on its own, for example, in my previous tutorial in the single cube template, it's basically telling you what you need to shift the angle by to get the exact same angle in that file. That's what that does, and I will explain that a bit more later, but it's not really relevant for this. So moving on, background color. This is non-renderable. This is purely for just for when you're working, to make it nice and easy for you. Let's actually brighten it up a tiny little bit. I think I'll just check I'm still recording. Yep, brilliant, because let me tell you people, this is not the first time I have tried to record this tutorial. In fact, we're probably on version 8, I believe, and several cups of coffee if you can't tell. So yep, background color, slightly brighter, easier to work. Now the next two options are the important ones. We've got cube display disabled. This is the level of quality we want to display our actual animations. Okay, so if I set this to, let's go high quality, and you can see here cube animation, we've got 10 selected. There are 38 different styles of cube. I seriously have been working on this for the best part of a year. It's all quite impressive stuff, so I hope you like it. I'm going to turn off the guide box display type because it's kind of getting in the way. Now as you can see, we've loaded in Cube Animation 10 here, which is Flubber, I've called it in my mind, which is a green sort of gooey thing that's stuck inside a crate. Now in front of us here, all these 10 cubes lined up at the back, it looks very uniform and a bit crap, let's face it, and that's because none of our other settings are in yet. There's no lighting, there's no sweet animation, there's no tumble, there's no randomization of the orientations, there's no shadow. All of that stuff I've already done as presets, and I've also given you full control if you want to get in depth with it. So do not worry, I know it doesn't look great just yet, we'll get there. Okay, next rollout, we're getting there, is the custom structure. Now this is where we're going to set the positions and the rotations of our cubes. And there's also a hell of a lot of pre-made stages I've done for you guys. So for example, let's have a look at some of these, shall we? We have an angled medium DJ booth. Let's click on that, and as you can see, it's set all the settings up for us. There's 7 cubes, all the positions are here, the modular rotations are here, so for each cube, the pan, the tilt, there we go. We can revolve around this, so if I grab the orbit camera tool and just move the camera slightly, you can see that it all dynamically updates. And it's this that pins to our auto unwrap. Now I won't jump ahead too much, but let me just quickly show you that. So each face in here is being pinned into our pixel map, and in here there's also a control layer, and you can say, show me the pixel map, show me the money, honey, and it will load the pixel map on top, and you can see that we're pinning into these faces. Now, doesn't matter if you spin completely around this 180 degrees. My expressions, the code in this template, knows which face is facing you and which one isn't, and which is back facing and which is obscured, and it chooses the appropriate face and puts it in the right spot and make sure it's the right way up and make sure it's pinned properly. Don't worry about any of that, it's all already done. You just design what the structure and get the nice cool looking angle and choose and customize to your heart's content, and it will render out perfectly. So let's have another look at a different preset. I think, what else have we got? We've got grid of 9, we got ring, so there's a angled ring, and there's circles. Let's look at cake angle, because I know you guys love cake mapping. I've seen it at a lot of weddings. There's a lot of projection mapping. You can do that now automatically here. There we go. And if we revolve around said cake, you guys will notice that straight out the box everything's a wee bit uniform. My animation is all at the same point in time, and you can also use, by the way, the pan tool here if you're needing to go a little bit more up. You'll see that it's all got the same sort of orientation, everything's pointing in the same direction. It's just a bit, I don't know, just looks a bit samey, doesn't it? So to address that, let me just quickly go back to UVW box view for the guide, by the way, because it just demonstrates what I'm talking about. You'll see that everything is aligned, all the axes are pointing in the same directions. Cool. And to combat the uniformity of it, what we can do is we can go down into in the custom structure rollout, we can go down to randomize orientations, or we could, you know, we could rotate things in here by 90 degrees, and we could do it individually for each cube if we want to change rotations. But I suggest you just hit this button, enable randomize angles, and it's going to randomize everything by 90 degrees. And voila, there we go. And now you can see the effect of that, and if I turn off the UVW guide box display, you can see the effect that's had on our actual renderable cube styles. There we go, everything looks a bit more organic now. Just had to take a little break there because my recording decided to stop, but here we are. We're back at default, so I'm going to show you guys how to put together a structure of your own. Now, in the custom structure rollout, we're down here and we're at modular positions, and if you move these, this is where you can move the position of each cube. So for cube 1, we can see it's at 500, which is over here, by 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every cube's width is 100, by the way, by default, if you haven't scaled it, so it's quite easy to know how far you got to move everything. Obviously this is the y-axis. In After Effects they like to do things back to front, upside down, so if I was to type in -100, it's going to move up, it's going to go there. There we go, nice. And of course this is the z-axis or z-axis depending if you're an American, and that brings it back and forward in the foreground and background. So -600 is of course back there. If it was on 0 it would be somewhat in the middle, and I will quickly show you that by putting cube 3 in the middle. There we go. Okay, so let's start with just the 3 cube setup, I think. So we'll go and set it to have 3 cubes, and as I showed you before, and I'm sure that I will stick stills all over this video, we have a bunch of preset stages that I've already designed, which are all editable, by the way. You can just load one of them up and then start changing it on top of the already set values, so nice and easy if you want to just make a few tweaks to something that already exists. It's all in there. We're going to start from scratch. We're going to do 3 cubes and we're going to 0 them all in, so we'll just type 0, 0, 0 for the position coordinates for the first 3 cubes, so they're all on top of each other right here. Bada bing bada boom, there they are. Okay, and we're going to turn on cube number labels so we can keep track of what's what. We're going to turn off reflections because there's no need for them, it slows us down. Time is money, my friends. Okay, so position cube 1, let's move it, I don't know, let's move it to the left side, 100, to go that way. We'll move cube 2, and let's move cube 2, -100, and I've changed my mind, let's make it a bigger structure. So we'll leave 3 in the middle, let's go 4 cubes, simply adding another one. Doesn't mess with anything, by the way, you can just keep adding cubes and it will just keep adding cubes. So number 4, let's 0 that in, buff buff buff, and let's put it up 1, and as I said, After Effects does everything kind of back to front, so minus to go up. There you go. Do we do one more? Let's put one here, so it's a kind of like random cross shape. I want to kind of make something a bit awkward to map, to show guys just how versatile this is and just how easy I make it. So let's go, let's make it 5 cubes. Go on, treat yourself. In fact, no, let's not. What's the need? Let's move number 3 forward. Put it back to 4, and number 3 we can move it forward by 100. Voila! And we'll use the orbit camera tool to just give you another sneaky little view of this so you can see what we've built. That is it, people. That is how you use the tool. It's very, very easy. If you want to change the rotations, you do it in here. So, I don't know. What should we do? Should we shift cube 4 so it's panned? Panned is the round the way, by the way. Tilt is up the way. If you're tilting things, it will always do it regardless of the pan. So it's gonna. You know what? Let me just show you. So let's pan it 45 degrees. So this cube is going to have its point here. There you go. Now, if you tilt it, look what happens. Let's tilt it by 45 degrees. It will intersect slightly because we'll have to obviously account for that. Sorry, -45. I want it to be the other way. There we go. So we've tilted it back and forward. If I pan it now, do you think it's going to spin around this way, or do you think it's going to stay turning on its local axis like the globe, like the world has its axis it spins on? I'll give you a hint, it's going to move on the axis it spins on like the globe, because it keeps everything nice and succinct and it's very easy to operate. There you go. So it's still spinning around its own axis, but in terms of tilt, it always tilts around the I guess it would be the world axis. So the world axis is aligned with my grid here and my lovely little sticker, and the local axis is just depending whichever way the cube is pointing, that's where its axis is going to be. I hope that makes sense to those of you who don't use 3D software. It is very user intuitive. You're just going to have to trust me on that one, because I am one of those people. Okay, so that's how you rotate stuff. We'll put it back down to here. Now, as I said before, you can orbit around this. It is completely dynamic. All the animations look great from any angle. And let's go in a bit closer. I like this. I think this looks cool. Laptop is a little bit slow, but that is only because I am screen recording, so please bear with me. I will probably chop some of these little pauses out of this tutorial. Okay, so we're a wee bit closer now. The final option that I'm not going to touch because I quite like this, but is scale. If you scale things, they get larger or smaller, believe it or not. Who'd have thought? See? So we'll just return that to 100. Okay, so option here, the next one is Randomize Orientations. I may have mentioned previously, but if you click this, it will just jumble everything by 90 degrees. It's a nice easy way of doing what would otherwise take you a little bit of time in here individually for each cube. Just by clicking that, you can randomize it, which is nice. It takes away the uniformity. Okay, that is our structure built. That's literally all you have to do, and you can do it obviously up to 10 cubes. If you've got a structure that's way bigger than that, just do it several times. Just render several bunches of 10 cubes. Bob's your ankle, funny's your aunt, and this product's awesome. So, moving on. Let's take off cube number labels because we don't need them anymore, and we'll take off wireframes because we don't need that anymore. We'll turn on. You know what? I'll center my camera slightly better because we are a bit skew with here, aren't we? Boopity boopity boop. Hopefully that looks a bit better. Yes, it does. Cool. We'll turn off the UVW box and we'll turn back on the actual cube. So we'll put it on high quality and we'll turn on the floor reflections because it looks sweet. And any moment it will load back into the cache and we can see, pardon me, what we're working with. Cool. So we're looking a bit better now, aren't we? We're getting through it now, guys. So we're on the next rollout, which is add logo. Now, if you want to add a logo, you simply decide which cube you want it to go in, and it will pop it inside. So, what was that one? 1, 2, 3. You know what? I can't remember, and that is why I put this little option here. I need to know what that cube is because I want to put my logo in. It's 4. Okay. How unprofessional of me. Forgetful. Okay, so cube 4, let's stick a logo in cube 4. Boff. And any second you'll see my logo drop in there. Then it's upside down. Why is that? Well, it's because the logo is following the orientation of the cube, and because I've rotated it and I've spun around, it thinks that it's the right way up. So in order for us to correct that, we can either click here, auto orient logo. So for anything that includes text or logos or icons, clicking this button will auto point it towards your viewer's position, or aka the camera or the viewport here. So if I click that, you'll see it points nicely at us, so it's nice and legible. There you go. Handy. Now if it's too big, which mine is, you can pop this down. Should we go for, I don't know, 20%? We want to get it fitting in that cube. Oh, beautiful. It's as if I've done that before. And what else do we want to do? Let's say, okay, so let's say we like that, but we're not so fond of it being inside the cube, which, by the way, is casting true 3D reflections and shadows. But let's say we don't want that. Let's say we want it to be on its own. We can turn off the original animation and swap it. That sub stands for substitute logo. So what I'm saying is substitute that cube for a blank one. There you go. That's how you do that. And the same applies for everything else. So if I was to take that off, because I actually quite liked it inside the flubber, and what we'll do is we will add some text. I think we'll add text to cube 3, which is this one. He says, I believe it is anyway. Yes, it is. And we'll do the same thing, auto orient. Text A, like I said, you have 2 lots of text, and you can scroll through up to 5 lines in the next few options. So there we go, it says live. Now this one I don't want flubber to be there because it's annoying, can't really read the text, so we'll just sub the text. Icon, let me show you that real quick. Icon is here. We've got YouTube, we've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, Snapchat. Interesting. Let's use YouTube because I like YouTube. And let's bang it in cube number 1. This one. And don't worry guys at the moment about everything auto-orienting towards the camera, because you can also add additional animation from our presets, which I'll show you in the next step. Okay, so there's YouTube. YouTube's the wrong way up. Now, remember earlier I said we needed to get rid of the uniformity and that we need to randomize the angles. So if we look quickly, we'll go back to display and I'll turn on UVW box so you can see the angles. The reason that YouTube logo is on its side is because we randomize the angles, you see, and it's flipped it on its side. So if I take the randomization off and turn off the UVW guide so we can see what we were looking at again, you can see everything's the right way around. This is a self-remedying thing. If you want to add more randomization, then stick it back on, and later on we can just rotate things back the way we need them to be. It's all perfectly fine and sortable, so we'll leave it like this for now because I quite like that, and we'll move on. God, we are getting through it. Okay, so Animate Structure. Now in here I've loaded in a bunch of animation presets. Now you can only see a few of them because this is a work in progress, this tutorial, but basically our structure, it maps from whatever you set out to be the positions and the rotations. It will take the corners of these cubes and it will pin it to the pixel map. Now you can rotate an orbit, sorry, wrong words there. You can tumble the cubes irregardless of the mapping, so you can sort of sub-rotate them for really cool tumbling Rubik's Cube type looks in your final design, and it won't affect the mapping at all. So if I was to go back to where we were, Animate Structure, you can tumble cubes and have them twist and turn, and it's not going to change the white wireframes. So if I go U on the keyboard, you can see this is the preset animations I've loaded in. If you want to load in the preset, you go here, and if you want to reset it, you go there. Well, let's reset it so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so we've taken off the Animate Structure preset. Ooh, foiled by autosave again. Okay, so we've taken off the animation preset and we've set it back to reset. I just want to show you from scratch what you can do here. So tumble X cube 1. So remember, cube 1's this one, and if you need to remember, just if you need to see what cube's what, put the labels on. So if I was to tumble the cube 45 degrees in the X or thereabouts, you'll see this tumble, but it doesn't change the pinning or the mapping. So this is sort of like an animated thing. It's like a sub animated property that won't affect your structure at all. It's kind of like the look, the animation of the cubes. I don't really believe I can explain better than just showing you several different demonstrations of what this actually does, because that's about as far as the explanation goes. You can animate things and have it look like it's tumbling, even though it's not changing the orientation of your mapping. So we'll load back in the particle shooter preset that I had on earlier. Make sure you're at frame 0 when you load in presets, because it does put it on at the time you're at, which I've just forgot to do. So there we go. Okay, so inside this rollout we can also delay the animations. So all our flubber animations are starting at the same frame. So if you want, for instance, I don't know, if you want number 1 to be offset a little bit, you can just zip it in here. You can do it cube by cube, and as you can see, it's just moved there. We'll do that again if you weren't watching, because my cursor wasn't nearby, but it will update and it will be somewhere else. There you go. So that's how you offset the animations. You can do it individually, or you can do it globally. So you can just say here, I want to stagger everything by 56. So what it will do is it will choose a random frame between 0 and 56, and it will apply that to all of them. So if I click enable, there you go. We only have 1, 2, 3 cube animations visible at the moment, so you're not going to see an awful lot of difference. If there's 10, it is a lot more obvious. And if we've got, for instance, a load of tumbling animations here where everything's animating and tumbling, which it is, by the way, all these keyframes, you can also apply that delay, that stagger, you can apply it to the tumbling effect as well. So we can click there and it will tumble everything delayed by that very same amount, as you can see. And now I know it looks funky, but remember, our white wireframes is how it's mapped. So even though it looks like it's all janked up, it's not. It's just right in the middle of a flipping animation. Not a great frame for me to pause on, to be honest, but there we go. I've looked at all these. I've pretty much tested through every single and cross-compatibilized, if that's a word, every setting to check that it looks great, and it all works very well. So pretty much every setting is interchangeable. I'll turn that off just so I can carry on explaining things. Now, I was working with 4 cubes here. I mean, this is the workflow. I want to show you a bit more complicated stuff, and I also want to keep this tutorial fairly short, at least shorter than a 3-day tutorial, because that would be mad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load in a preset that I made earlier, because that will save us some time and I can show you some other funky things. So custom structure, presets, let's load in a ring, an angled ring. No, let's not do that, let's do a circle, an angled circle. And what we want to do, I want to just demonstrate to you how we can quickly tweak and reposition and move things, and more specifically work with logos and icons and text. So what we want to do is we want to put live text in here, and we want to substitute it so we're not using that flubber cube anymore. And then I want a sort of symmetrical thing, so I'm going to put live in there as well, and we can scroll through different text for each of them. And then I'm going to put my logo in the middle, my main branding logo. In fact, yeah, we'll put the logo in the middle, and then we'll switch it out afterwards and do a version as well with Twitter or something as an icon in there, just to show you that. So we'll get an ID on the cube so we know what's what. I believe it's 5 and 2. Yeah, 5 and 2 are the left and right ones, so we can turn that off. And I'm going to put text A in number 5, text B in cube 2, logo in, I believe it was cube 7, wasn't it? Cool, so let's get a look and feel for the size of everything. My logo, my image logo is sized nicely, although I can't see it, so we're going to substitute the logo, get rid of this flubber. Some of the animations lend themselves well to dropping logos in directly, some of them don't. This is one of those animations where things just get in the way a little bit, so I'm going to sub it in, which stands for substitute. And we'll do the same for the text as well. Now, the text is going to flip around nicely. I know it looks like it's upside down, but that's because it's following the rotation of these original cubes, which have been, obviously the orientation's been randomized, so now our text is pointing in random directions. So we'll sub in the text, and we'll also orient it towards the camera so we can actually read it. Even when things are oriented towards the camera, you can still animate them in a later section. You can still have them spin around and stuff. In fact, that is what I'm going to show you. So let's scale down the text to 30 instead of 35, because it is just getting chopped off a wee bit. How does that look? Pretty cool, much better, like it. Okay, so we've got live on each side. We've got the same thing. How do we change that? How do we change it to be what we've set in step 1? Which I cleverly skipped because I want to go through it now with you. So we'll go in here, and it's very, very simple, because it says down here exactly what you've got to do. Replace this logo with your logo. To do so, project, import your logo by double clicking. Let's pretend this is a logo. Ooh, I've just clicked and I've imported it. And then what you do is, with it selected here in the project panel, you hold down Alt and you drag it down to there, and it will Alt replace it. That's it. That's how you put your logo in. For text, you can see here, text A, line 1, double click to edit. So you double click on that, type whatever you want, boobity boobity bee, boobity boobity boo, and it will type that and update it across the whole project. Obviously, I don't want that to be whatever that says, so we'll just Control Z and that will go back to live. Now you see how we've got 5 lines. We've got live streams, logos, hashtags, branding. We've got the same again over there. How do we scroll through these in our design? This is how. What you do is, I'll just put shy back on because I didn't want you guys to see all my gubbins, all my workings, all my expressions. There you go. Okay, so what you do is you come down, and we'll go beyond Animate Structure just for a sec and retouch upon that in a minute. Animate Logos, you can see we've got settings for each of these. So the main logo is the main image, text A is this one, text B is that one, and icon we don't have on this design, but I will show you that as well later. So we'll go into main, and as you can see, spin Y main. I've already loaded a load of animation on it, which you can find here. Animate, explode, text read through YouTube. There's going to be a load of presets listed in here. Obviously I'm recording a tutorial, so not everything's in yet, but let's say we want to spin on the Z. If I just quickly show you that, 31, it's going to spin round by 31 degrees. There you go. Even if it's pointing at the camera, you can still animate there. Explode main, let's explode it a bit and see what that does. 49% on the explode. Boom, pretty cool. All of these easily animatable. So text animator A, as you can see there, it's set to text A source line, and is it on line 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5? It only goes up to 5, so don't worry about overdoing it. I've already put animation on, so if we scroll through in the timeline, you can see I've changed it to number 2, streams. I've also set the colors to change. There's all this is included in presets, all of this very animatable. You just go through and set a key for what color you want it to be at what time, and same for the spin values, same for the scale. Everything controlled in here. Same for B. Let's show you the icon. So let's change my logo in there for an icon. So we'll go up to the add logo, disable, and select icon YouTube, and icon can go into cube 7, which I know is the middle one, and that will switch it out for the icon. There it is. So it's a YouTube logo. I don't want it to be inside Flubber, I want it to be on its own, so we'll click sub to substitute in a box. There we go. Now we are in the middle of an animation, and everything is pre-fragmented, by the way. All the icons. We'll put Twitter on as well, and we'll go down to the icon animation rollout. I'll close all the other ones so it's a little bit less cluttered. And as you can see, there's animation on here already. Now I'll put a RAM preview into this tutorial so you can see exactly what that does, but for the sake of not waiting an hour now to RAM preview a 4K scene, what I'll do is I'll turn it all off, and I'll set the explode to 0, and I'll set fragment size to 1, and I'll set random sub rotation to 0, so you can see what Twitter looks like when it's not blown to pieces. There he is. And we'll set it to auto orient to the camera. Lovely. There you go. That is what that looks like. Now all the controls are starting to become quite intuitive, I believe, so I'm not going to bore you all with the details, but I will show you how you get from this step to having pinned, pixel mapped content ready to use. So step 2, let's say we've finished our design, we've gone through the animation, yes we like it, yes we've got the right logos and text we've animated, or we've used animation presets using these drop downs. What happens when we're happy with it? Or what happens if we got to the bottom, we're happy with it, but we want to change the cube animation entirely? Easy peasy, just go up to the top, change the cube animation. It literally couldn't be simpler. And it will update in. Now notice that these cubes, the cloth cubes, these cubes are red, or at least the lighting setup for this is red, but see our text is green. Intuitive, if you go Animate Logos, go into the text, you'll see that it's because it's keyframed to be green. So let's make it red, which it is at the start. There you go. Everything looking a bit more succinct now, isn't it? The timings of our cubes, the baked nested animations I've created, are all at the same point by the looks of things. So in Animate Structure, Delay Animations, let's randomize the animation delay by 112 frames, so it's going to delay these by anywhere up to 112 frames differently for each cube. 56. I like that anyway. That does what it says on the tin. Cool. So we like what we got, but we decide, you know what? Let's change the whole thing entirely. Is it going to throw all my other stuff out of joint? No. If I go here, custom structure, and say, I don't know, let's change it all, I don't like any of it, I want to have or we've got a client that's fussy, keeps changing his mind, boom, nice. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and as you can see, everything's been kept. Our cubes look like they've moved around, but what it is all the numbers obviously don't correlate to exactly the same position. I've tried to go left to right when I design these presets, but occasionally they're just such different shapes that you need to sort of jiggle them around, so you just obviously want to go in here to add logo and just move which cube it's assigned to. Okay, so what I think we'll do is I'll quickly switch it back. Let's put it onto, I don't know, let's put it what we were just on, let's put it back onto the angled circle. Let's turn off the cube number labels. What I want to do is show you how to animate the logos without any presets. So I've taken off all the preloaded animation that was on earlier, and if you look in here with Animate Logo Rollout, there's no animation on any of it. So if we wanted to start from scratch with the animation and do it ourselves, what we would do is we'll go into this and we'll just simply say, on frame 1 of course, I want text A, which is this one here, to be red, and then you could go forward and you could say on frame 25 I want it to be blue, just like the Twitter logo. And if I reveal this in the timeline, you can see here we've got 2 keys. There's a few little expression errors here. That's simply because I very hastily for this tutorial just deleted keyframes, and that expression makes keyframes loop, but there isn't any. I'll just clear that up. Keep it all professional. Okay, so that's how you change the text. Moving forward, you can animate through the timeline. If you want to change the source line, which we outlined here, as you can see, line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, line 5, I want it to say live streams. And now what to do that, I know that I've in the left and right I've actually written exactly the same thing, so I want the second one, which is text B, I want it to be on line 2, so it says live streams. So we'll go to text B and we'll put it on line 2, and that I haven't animated that, so that will just jump to line 2 from the beginning. There we go, and we'll make that the same blue because I like that blue. absolutely bloody marvellous. Now this is animatable, so if you wanted to, you could say I want them both to be like that, and then let's go to frame 50, and these are hold keyframes, which means they don't animate, they don't interpolate between lines 2 and 3. They'll simply just jump, so it will get to that keyframe and then it will go boom, line 2 or line 3. So on frame 50, let's change it now, so we'll put them both forward, so it will probably say something like logos tags, or it won't make any sense, but that's just because what I wrote in there doesn't make sense. I was trying to advertise, sneaky me. Cool, nice. Streams logos, brilliant. Grammar police will be knocking. So for the rest of the settings, I mean, they're all fairly self-explanatory. I mean, you've got exactly the same settings for all of your logo types. So your icon, we can explode the icon. We can change the fragment size. The random sub rot icon is the sub rotation, and that is the rotation of the individual pieces that make it up, not the whole thing. If you want to animate the whole thing, let's just unexplode it so we can see better what's going on. If you want to animate the whole thing, you would use the spin in here, not in the sub bit, but in the main part. So let's spin it on the Y, 20 degrees, just a little bit, and you'll see it turn. And if I go up, you can see that it's set to auto orient. Now the reason why this has span on an axis that doesn't seem to be the y-axis, it seems to be the z-axis. Remember, we've we've randomized the cube rotation, so you need to just bear in mind, if you've got that checked, all your axes will seem to be slightly jumbled. If you turn it off, everything will make sense again, and you just need to compensate for that. Cool. I mean, I won't go through all these right now because it's fairly self-explanatory. You've got the scale, so you can sort of make them bump and bounce and flash, obviously, with the colour. So you can have really cool looking logo animations that draw the eye and help you with whatever you're trying to accomplish, sell things or attract attention to your brand presence or business. Cool, so we're going to move on. I think what we'll do is we're going to change the preset again. So our client's once again changed his mind. We'll put this, we'll return everything back to what it was, I think, so we'll just set that to red. Yeah, so our client's changed his mind again. What a pain in the ass, eh? Good thing we've got DJVB's structure builder tool to help us. And he wants a different layout. He doesn't like the look of this stage, so we'll choose another one. I think we'll go for a large angled DJ booth. So we'll go into our animation preset, angled large DJ booth. Yep, I want that one. Forgot to change my Twitter logo back on the rotation, didn't I? Cool. So that will load up. I think what I'll do just for now as well, I'll put my resolution right up and I'll just cut out the little pauses in the video so you guys don't have to wait, because I want you to see this in its fullest glory, my people. So there we go, we've loaded in the DJ booth, and then he says, I'm not sure I like the animation now. Have you got any other animations? And that's the point when you say, yeah, actually I've got 38 of them, pal. So we'll choose another one. I don't know. Let's go for animation 7, and let's put our logos first in more appropriate places. I want to put them, I think, here in the center and there. And if we check cube number labels, it will tell us that that's probably 6, 3 and 9. 6, 3 and 9. I'm so good. I'm so very good. So we will put our main logo in 3. We will put text A in 6, and we'll put our B in 9, and we'll turn off the icon because I want my main logo now. And we will set the cube animation to 7 like we said we would. Cool, that is fabulous. That would make a nice DJ booth. So we've changed it to our client's liking, and he goes, no, I don't like that either, because he's really fussy. So what I'll do is I'm gonna sit with my client and I'm gonna go through a load of different ideas, because I want to get this out of him today, because I want to go home on time. So that's what I'll do with you guys. I'll run through a few things and show you what we can make with this tool. So he says he doesn't want logos anymore. He'll turn them all off. Bye bye logos. And he wants like a stack of, like a pyramid each side of his DJ booth, because he's throwing a party. So we'll change this to, I don't know, double angled stack. He likes it, but he wants to change the animation again. So let's put it onto, let's try number 8, which I believe is a cool pink bass bumping animation. Wicked, he loves it, but it looks a bit uniform, he says. So I said, okay, let's click randomize angles. If we want to as well, we could go into Animate Structure and we could turn up the stagger amount to make the animations even more offset. I don't need to do that because I think it's already looking pretty cool with the offset, so we'll leave it as is. But we'll check out the randomized angles now. It should look a bit more flipped and flopped. Yep, he loves it. He likes that, so we're going to pretend that we carried on with that and we rendered it out and we had it as party and it was great. And then he hired us again. He said, dude, that was awesome, can we do another party? And he said, obviously I'm like, yeah, let's do another party. So he says, right, new stage, let's do another one, let's do a bigger stage. So I said, okay, let's do, I came up with an idea that looked like stage A, flipped. Let's do an upside downy one. And we decided that we were going to make like electricity for his night this time. So we chose clip 6, which is like electric arcing lightning bolt type things. Lovely, and it loads in and he loves it and he goes, yeah, brilliant, I like that, we'll use that for the party, but I think maybe a few more clips. At which point I decide to load in another preset, which takes all of about 2 seconds. We'll go for I don't know, 9. We'll go for 9. And he's got a second room in his party and he's got a different stage altogether, so we'll do another stage. Let's go for angled pyramid, let's do 6 cubes, boof. And we'll randomize the rotation angles, just to make it look a little bit more jumbled, organic feel. And perhaps after this we'll do maybe one more for this client. We'll do, let's do number 17, show you that clip. Now you can get way more complicated. I've been showing you structures that are fairly symmetric or the same scaling or whatnot, things like that, and it doesn't have to be so. You can actually make far more complex looking structures with this tool, and I'm going to quickly demonstrate that for you in a second. We'll just let another frame load up. So let's say you wanted to make something like the Eamon Tobin tour, which is a more different scaled type of sort of randomly sci-fi structure that's all sort of bodged together. Looked fabulous, by the way, team that made Eamon Tobin. If you watch this, great work. So great that I'm emulating it in my tutorial. So let's go. I've made a preset. You guys can start from scratch as I keep reminding you, but we'll go for a preset. We'll go for the stage C mother cube, and we're gonna change the animation to 23. Now I know that this cube's rather this stage is a bit bigger than the one we're currently looking at, so before it loads up I'm just going to save us a tiny bit of time, and I'm going to just adjust the camera position so we can actually see this absolute monster that is the next stage that I'm loading in as a preset. And there we have it, absolute monster of a stage. So with this we could bang logos in, we could check the cube number labels, or we can just keep rendering out different clips, which I'm going to do. So we like 23, maybe let's try 35. That looks awesome. And we'll load in one more clip for this that we want to render out. We'll load in the ball cloth clip, the one we first started with this imaginary client, which is number 3. Now, while we're waiting for this to load, I might as well explain to you. As you can see, we don't have whole cubes here. They're overlapped by other cubes. There's things in the foreground. All that means is when you're mapping your pixel map, what you want to do is just order or layer the slices in Resolume or whatever you're using to map. You want to layer them in an order that makes sense from back to front, so the right layer's on top, so if it's closer to you, then it's higher up the stack and therefore on top of everything else. Now, there is a whole different method that's way more complicated that completely bypasses all this, that I will get into in another tutorial, but I have done a ridiculous amount of work to make a version of this that pixel maps, and it can see through cubes, and all the cubes are unaware of each other. I won't complicate this tutorial with that theory right now, but that is possible, and it is something that I will be sharing with you guys very shortly. Cool, so that's looking fantastic. I think we'll go on to one more stage. We'll run through a few more presets, and I'll just quickly skip and trim this video so you can see those, and then I'll run through a couple more settings before we start mapping this to the pixel map with the automated pixel mapping tool. So let's go to stepped arch, because I do like that preset. Custom structure, stepped arch. Cool. So we're on stepped arch. Let's now look at animation 19. Awesome, looks nice. What I'm trying to do, let's look at animation 30. Okay, so 30 looks cool, but it doesn't really lend itself to putting a logo in the middle. So we're gonna look at number 33. Nice. This actually does, when it starts animating, there's a big gap in the middle, but I think there's something better. I think the style that has the crate with the water swilling around would be perfect for this, which is number 35, I believe. And remember, what you can do, this is all dynamic, so it uses After Effects' built-in camera to map this exact view. So if you wanted to, for instance, move around this scene, it's gonna update everything. Nothing's gonna fall out of joint. So if I skip ahead a bunch, and we'll move the camera by like 800, we can still see everything beautifully from a different angle. It's as if we're a spectator in a room looking at this from another position. Wickedy wickedy whack, yo. Cool. So we'll put that back. We'll go back to frame, and we will look at animation 22. Cool, that looks awesome. Obviously, I haven't found the right frame for us to see our logo, but that's fine. When we render it out, there is plenty of opportunities where this is opening and spinning around, where you can see logos inside it. I think I've demonstrated rather enough of these presets. We'll go and put on one final one for demonstrating the pixel mapping. So we'll go, I think, for animation number 36, yeah. And we're going to drop the camera down a bit so it's a bit lower, because it's a bit high up at the minute. We'll go to -300, which is just a bit lower than where it is now. Okay, so we've loaded in the water preset, and what I want to do is I want to go down and show you what this setting does. It's the depth of 3D effects, and what this is essentially mimicking the effect of looking at this through a camera lens. Now obviously when it's projection mapped, there's no such thing. You're looking at it with your eyes. So by default it's set to mimic as closely as it can a human eye, but that all depends on how far away you are when you look at this. So essentially what this does is it increases or decreases the convergence of perspective, the level of depth or deepness to this effect, the 3D warp of the lens. If that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry. All you really need to know is this. If you set it somewhere down here, it's going to be like a wide angle lens, which means the depth effect is going to be super high, and it's as if you're stood quite close to this in real life. Now if you're far away, if it's on like a main stage, the effect's going to be quite shallow. You want it to look more orthographic, you want it to be more closed, the less convergence of perspective, which means you'll choose a higher setting like one of these. So if I quickly show you 70mm, it does move the camera slightly, by the way. It doesn't physically move the camera, but it seems like it moves because it adjusts the zoom, so you do need to just pull the camera back sometimes when you change these presets. But it's going to close down perspective, which you'll see now. Now this is for when you're quite far away. This is slightly more, it's a bit safer. It will look right more times than not. There we go, and it zoomed us right in. So this is a safer way to do it, but if you want to get more realistic, you'll choose the correct sort of one down here, depending on how far away your audience are going to be. That's what that does. I can't really go into a deeper explanation without getting seriously technical and confusing everyone. But what you ideally want to do is match that as close as you can, so when you're actually looking at your projection mapping, the convergence of perspective looks correct. And you'll know it because sometimes if you get it really wrong, way off the scale, then your lines will just sort of go into a vanishing point a little bit soon. Everything will sort of seem a bit odd, and if you get it right, all the lines will look sort of correct and parallel to your eye, even though they're not parallel at all. Yes, that does make sense. Okay, so now that I've shown you that, I think I'll quickly return to something I mentioned earlier, which is the angle compensation. So if I turn on cube number labels, this just gives us an idea of what cube is what number. So if I turn on cube number labels, this just gives us an idea of what cube is what number. Now this is it's a double conditional, which means if you also have angle compensation on, it will give you the number and it will give you the angle that you have to compensate by. Now what it's doing is it's telling you that if you want to render a single cube out using our other template that works with single cubes, if you want this cube if you want to render it out in the single cube template and you want it to look exactly like it does here, you don't want to just punch these numbers in, because look, it's off to the left and the camera is making it seem like it's turned away from us more than it actually is, and it seems like it's turned away by these amounts. This is giving us the differential based on the camera's position, so it's very specific to this exact design. So let's say we had, let's switch out some of the cubes. So this cube here is at 45 degrees. If we have another design, if we had the let's say we had a DJ booth, a medium-sized one, we know that all the cubes in this DJ booth are the same pan and tilt. If we go into the rotations, you can see plus 45, minus 45, they're all at the same pan and tilt. So the effect of looking at this and having cubes left or right means that for us, for our viewers, relative to our view, the cubes on the left seem to be slightly turned even more away from us. We're looking at them slightly from an offset. So even though these are all the same pan and tilt, this one's slightly turned left ways, this one seems to be slightly turned right ways, and this one seems to be slightly turned up. These ones all seem to be a bit turned down. This is the amounts. This is what it's telling us. This is how you need to replicate and then render it out if you're going to do it in the single cube template file. That's all that does, and I thought I'd quickly touch upon it. Now we can move on and go back to where we were. So we have our lovely water, and we're going to stick our cube back in, add logo, our logo back in. It's already in actually, it's inside here, hiding from us. Now let's demonstrate the pixel mapping tool. What we do when we're happy with our design, maybe I'll just pull the camera out a little bit, we'll go 4:300, is we go and we render our pixel map in step 3. You don't really need to render a pixel map. because they're already rendered and included as image files, so you could just choose the right one. Obviously we know the amount of cubes here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8, so we'd use the 8 cube pixel map and it would be great because it's all been done already by me. But let's say we wanted to start from scratch and we didn't want to rely on a pixel map. We'll go to step 4, which is the unwrapping, and I'll show you the gubbins behind everything. So there we go, it's unwrapping the faces, and while I have the tool locked on the right hand side, let me just show you that this pixel map is live and dynamic. It is reading all the settings and it is giving you the best layout it can based on the amount of cubes. So see, we have 8 cubes there. Let's change it and let's just drop it by 1, let's say 7 cubes instead, and it will give us the best pixel map for 7 cubes. There you go, 7 cubes, and it will update and tell you how many pixels per face and all that business. I know you could probably spot a lot of pixelation here. That's because we're set down to quarter, because I want to show you this quick styly. Even with it up full, let me tell you now, you will notice a little tiny bit of pixelation. Why is that? That is because in its nature, projection mapping is stretching pixels into an area that they don't belong. You are losing data. That's just the way it is. And the good thing about that is, even though this looks really stretched, that's because we're stretching just a few pixels into an area that's much bigger than itself. But actually in the design, you can barely see that. So when you're projecting it, that accounts for almost nothing. It's a slither and you barely see that. But it is accurate and correct, and it does need to be there. This is all done by the book. So as you can see in the background in some of these, there's actually, you can see the floor, which we don't want, and you can see through the cubes. Seeing through the cubes is perfectly fine, but the floor, that is an issue. And let me just show you how you deal with that. In the pixel map controls down here, ready to render, before you render, just check that and it will turn off everything that doesn't need to be on. That's how you stop things being in the render that shouldn't be there. So we'll just check that button. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, it got rid of it all. Some of the guide layers, you can still see the checkerboard. That's fine, that's a guide layer, don't worry about that. You won't see it in the render. Now here we have face not in view, face not in view. What that is telling you is that there is a face that would be here. There would be a cube. This is cube 1, this is cube 2. There would be a cube 2, I believe that's the Z face at the top, but we can't see it in this particular design, so we don't need it. Now cube 2 Z face, I know, is the one on top, and as you can see, it really isn't visible. So my algorithms just said we don't need it, don't put it there. This that you can see will render black when you render it out, because obviously you don't want any junk in here, because if your mapping for some reason during a live show goes out of joint and decides to unmap itself, we don't want these things to be showing up on screens. So that is just for your guidance, that is not going to be in your render. So we're ready to render, we're happy with it. All we have to do, Control M and add it to the render queue, and that is it. You render from here, as it says, the composition name. I think that is it, guys, for the tutorial. I do have another composition that I will show you in another tutorial. This one here, step 5, optional, project from After Effects. Oh yes, people, if you don't have a media server for projection mapping, I've actually made a way that you can do it directly from After Effects. I wouldn't recommend it for show uses, but if you don't have the required software and you don't want to download a very generous and handy tutorial from somewhere such as Resolume, then you could do it from here. I really wouldn't suggest it, but there is a way, and I'll show you how in another tutorial. But for this one, we'll wrap it up, and in the next bunch of tutorials we're going to go a lot more in depth into each thing. Thank you guys, this is Kane from DJVB with the custom structure builder tool, part of Box Mapping Toolkit Pack version 2. Signing out.